At the end of the Shango video, I made a promise. I told you we were going to meet the one they feared more than Shango himself. The god of thunder, the king who breathed fire, the most powerful Orisha in the Yoruba pantheon. And I told you there was someone they feared more. You probably thought that was exaggerating. I wasn't. Because Shango, controlling lightning. But the goddess we're meeting today, she controls what comes after lightning. She controls the storm, the wind, the hurricane. And if that wasn't enough, she is the only Orisha in the entire Yoruba pantheon with power over the dead. Every soul that leaves this world passes through her. Every ancestor you have ever prayed to had to go through her first. Her name is Oya, and she was also Shango's wife, which tells you everything you need to know about the kind of woman she was. Welcome back to the Myths of the Motherland. Let's talk about Oya. Before we go back to ancient Nigeria, let me ask you something. Do you know Storm, the X-Men character, the African woman who controls weather, white hair, absolute power over wind and lightning, one of the most powerful mutants alive? Marvel created her in 1975, and for decades, people assumed she was just a cool superhero concept. An African woman with feathered power, dramatic, original, and fictional. Except, she wasn't fictional. She was Oya. The resemblance isn't coincidence. The African origin isn't coincidence. The weather powers aren't coincidence. Marvel's writers had access to the same mythology we're about to explore, and they borrowed heavily. Just like they borrowed Wakanda from real African kingdoms, just like the Lion King borrowed from Sundiata Keita, the pattern keeps repeating because the source material keeps being extraordinary. So today we go to the source, the real Storm. Before Marvel, before Hollywood, before anyone thought to put her name in a comic book. This is Oya. Like Shango, Oya was not born a goddess. She was a woman first. A mortal woman from the town of Ira, in what is now Kwara State, Nigeria. And from her very first appearance in Yoruba oral tradition, she is unlike any woman in any other mythology I have ever encountered. Her name itself tells you something. In Yoruba, Oya comes from the phrase Oya, which means she tore. Not she arrived, not she appeared, not she came gently into the world. She tore. Like a storm tears through everything in its path. Her first marriage was to Ogun, the Orisha of iron, war, and the forge. If you've heard of Ogun, and we'll cover him properly in a future video, you know he is not a soft figure. He is fierce, he is relentless, he is the god of warriors and blacksmiths, and anyone who works with metal. And Oya left him. She looked at the god of war, one of the most powerful Orisha in existence, and she decided she wanted something else. She left Ogun for Shango. Let that sit for a moment. The kind of woman who leaves the god of war because she has higher standards. That is who Oya was. Now let's talk about what Oya could actually do, because this is where things get extraordinary. She controlled the wind, not the gentle breeze, not the light wind. Hurricanes, tornadoes, the kind of wind that tears trees from the ground and levels everything standing in its path. In the Caribbean, where Yoruba religion survived the Middle Passage and took root in new soil, the annual hurricane season is understood through the lens of Oya. Those storms that form in the Atlantic and tear through islands after islands. That is Oya. still working, still making herself known, centuries after her name crossed an ocean. She also controlled lightning, which, if you watched the Shango video, you'll probably remember was Shango's domain. But Oya didn't ask his permission. There's a story about that. One day, Shango kept a powerful magical substance, a medicine that gave him the ability to spit fire from his mouth. He trusted Oya to keep it safe. And instead of keeping it safe, she consumed it herself, just ate it, decided she wanted that power too. When Shango found out, he was furious, and Oya, rather than apologize, ran. She fled to the sea deity Olokun, then to her sister Olosa, goddess of lagoons. Shango pursued her relentlessly. And you know what the most remarkable part of that story is? It's not that she stole his power, it's that she kept it. She was never made to give it back. Because by the time Shango caught up with her, the balance of power between them had fundamentally shifted. She wasn't just his wife anymore. She was his equal. And Shango, Thunder God, accepted that. Which is how we end up with the storm we know today. When you see lightning flash, that is Shango. When you feel the wind that follows, when you hear the howl before the storm arrives, that is Oya, going before him, clearing the path like she always did. But wind and storms, as terrifying as they are not why people fear Oya more than Shango. This is why. Oya is the only Orisha with power over the dead. Every other Orisha governs something in the living world. Thunder, iron, rivers, love, justice. But Oya stands at the gate between this world and whatever comes next. She is the guardian of cemeteries. When you die, your soul does not simply drift away. It has to pass through Oya first. She decides the terms of that transition. She is the one who guides the Egungun, the spirits of their ancestors, back when they visit the living world during sacred ceremonies. She keeps the door between worlds, and she controls who passes through it and when. Now think about that in comparison to Shango. Shango could destroy things. He could call down lightning. He could burn a palace to the ground. But Oya decided what happens after the burning. That is a different kind of power. That is the kind of power that sits deeper in the human psyche than anything lightning can reach. Because humans fear death in a way they don't fear storms. You can run from a storm, you cannot run from Oya. One of her titles in the Yoruba tradition is Ayabonikawa, Queen of Death. She doesn't have that title by accident. There is one more thing about Oya that I want you to understand. Because it's the detail that makes her story feel completely different from anything in Greek or Norse mythology. Oya could shapeshift into a water buffalo. Not metaphorically, not spiritually. A full water buffalo. And this power was not just symbolic, it was tactical. There is a story about how Oya first met Shango. She was in the forest in her buffalo form when Shango encountered her. He saw this magnificent animal, powerful, enormous, impossible to ignore, and he reached out and touched her horns. In that moment, Oya transformed back into the woman she was, and Shango, who had seen everything, who had faced every kind of enemy, who breathed fire, was completely undone. He begged her not to reveal her buffalo nature, to anyone. She agreed, but only on her own terms. She set the conditions of their relationship from that very first encounter. Think about who Shango was, the king of the Oyo Empire, the most powerful man alive. And from the very first moment he met Oya, she was the one setting the terms. That is not a coincidence. That is character. To this day, it was forbidden for Oya's priests to kill or eat a buffalo. That animal is sacred to her. It represents her independence, her ability to become something untamable when the world demands it of her. Now, if you watched the Shango video, you know how his story ended. The terrible mistake, the palace fire, the exile into the forest, the ascension. What this Shango video didn't tell you, because we were following his story, was what Oya was doing through it all. She was beside him, not decoratively, not symbolically, literally beside him on the battlefield. In Yoruba tradition, it is said that before Shango goes to war, Oya goes first. She runs ahead of him. She tears through the enemy's formation with wind and storm and fury, clearing the path so that by the time Shango's lightning arrive, the enemy is already scattered. She was not his support. She was his vanguard, the most fearsome military asset the Oyo Empire had, went by the name of Shango's wife. And when Shango fell, when he walked into the forest and chose to leave this world, Oya did not stay behind. She could not bear a world without the one she had chosen. She could not bear a world without the one she had chosen over the god of war. She went to the Niger River, the river that has always carried her name, the Odoya, and she drowned herself. And like Shango, she ascended. She became Orisha, not just the goddess of storms, but the goddess of the Niger River itself, one of the greatest rivers of the African continent, carries her name. Because she gave herself to it, and it became hers forever. Oya did not fade after the Middle Passage. She crossed the Atlantic in the same way Shango did, inside the memory of people who refused to forget. In Brazil, she is known as Yansa. In Cuba, she is Oya in Santeria. In Haiti, her presence is felt in Voodoo. In Trinidad and Tobago, she is still called upon. And in every tradition, the colors are the same: deep wine red, purple, dark maroon. The storms are the same. The cemetery gates are the same. The fierce independence is the same. Oya traveled further and changed less than almost any other deity in history, because the people who carried her understood something essential about her. She is not a goddess who adapts for convenience. You carry her as she is, or you don't carry her at all. And in the Ogun festival in Nigeria, one of the most important traditional festivals in Yoruba culture, Oya is central, because the Egungun are the ancestors, the spirits of the dead returning to visit. And it is Oya who holds the door open long enough for them to cross back through. She is the reason the living can still speak to those who have gone. That is not something any lightning bolt can do. I want to take a moment here, the same way I did with Shango, because Oya is not just a dramatic story. She's a theological statement. The Yoruba looked at the forces of the universe and they said, the most terrifying thing is not destruction. The most terrifying thing is change. Shango destroys, but destruction is finite. It ends. Oya transforms, and transformation is infinite. It never stops. The storm passes, but what the storm leaves behind is never the same as what it was there before. That is Oya's domain. She is the goddess of the moment, when the old things end and the new things hasn't started yet. That in-between space, that terrifying suspense between what was and what will be, that belongs to her. Her title, Ayiloda, means she who turns and changes. She is not the goddess of destruction. She is the goddess of transformation. And in Yoruba cosmology, that is more powerful than anything. Because you can rebuild after destruction, but you cannot go back after transformation. Oya started as a mortal woman who left the god of war because she deserved more. She stole fire from the god of thunder and kept it. She stood at the front of every battle her husband ever fought. She drowned herself in a river when she could not imagine existence without him. And then she became something that will exist long after both of them are myths. The goddess of storms, the queen of death, the guardian at the gate between worlds, the river that still carries her name. She is feared more than Shango, not because she is more violent, but because her domain is unavoidable. Everyone faces a storm eventually, but everyone, without exception, passes through Oya's gate. That is it for the Oya story. If you like the story, share it with someone who needs to hear it. Subscribe to Myths of the Motherland and follow the Yoruba Gods playlist. Because next time we meet Ogun himself, the god of iron who never rests, the one every warrior, blacksmith and soldiers in Nigeria still pray to today. I'll see you then.